Welcome to the Making Sense of Magic podcast, a conversation between two members of the Scottish Magic the Gathering community, where we discuss our most recent musings and try to make some sense of the game that we've been obsessing over for far too long. Hello and welcome back to another episode. How are you doing, Craig?
Yeah, not bad. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm still reeling from all the new Phyrexia stuff. We got all the cards sorted from the store and uploaded to MKM, so I've been thinking a lot about new Phyrexia. Not new Phyrexia. Phyrexia All Will be One. Been thinking a lot about Phyrexia All Will be One. Which, again, because the set has been so exciting and feels like it's going to change so much, it's actually got me thinking about Standard again.
Yeah, I think between this and the current Mana Trader series is Standard, like a lot of tournaments are actually coming back to Standard.
Yeah, and it makes me feel a bit sad when I think about how much time I have taken out of the format because, like you alluded to in the last episode, I am a hater of eternal formats generally, but it's because I always enjoyed the challenge of trying to figure Standard out. I feel like you get so many edges in Standard by good preparation and good deck building.
Yeah, the agency you receive in your deck building, I think, tops most other formats.
Yeah, if you have a good sideboard plan for a Standard matchup, you can add 15% on that matchup, and I don't think that's true in any of the Eternal formats generally.
Not really, no.
And I think that's because the older formats get explored more. Because with Standard, you only have 3 months and then the format changes. A new set comes out and it might not drastically change it, but enough of the landscape changes that the things you have learned before aren't always the best things to be doing anymore. Even if it is just like your sideboard plan changes or there's more options or even if no new decks appear, things change enough generally that your previous iterations are just not the best way to do it anymore.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think definitely with the sideboard plans making a big difference. The sideboard plans, in a way, I mean, you can dedicate 10 slots against Reanimator and Legacy and probably gain a lot more than 15%, but you're never really going to do that.
And that's the thing as well why I really like Standard, because, well, in general I like Standard. You might tell me why I'm wrong, but generally I like Standard because all the matchups, even your bad matchups, never really felt worse than a 60-40. Whereas with Modern, and again, I've not played much Modern since MH2 came out, but with Modern before that, I just felt you could lose in deck registration. If you just showed up with the wrong deck in the wrong room, you could just have 20% in all your matches that day.
Yeah, that definitely has been a bit of the feeling. I think that MH2's kind of made Modern more interactive, but I mean, I've been avoiding Modern the last few months. I won my CQ in Modern, but I played a deck called Rakdos Scam, which basically just... I didn't really make many decisions that day, put it that way.
Yeah, I'm actually a bit saddened that I've fallen away from Standard so much, because I played the shit out of Standard. I got my World Cup invite off of a Standard event. All of the PPTQs that I won were Standard, or I won a few limited ones, but do you know what I mean? It's the format that I've always felt the most affinity for. It's the format that I've always enjoyed pouring time into. So the fact that I know absolutely nothing about the format at the minute, kind of makes me feel funny about my relationship with Magic right now.
I do think that, the break and COVID and everything did kind of do a lot to hurt Standard, but I do think that, Wizards and that are actually doing a bit to push it again, so hopefully it does come back, because I also really enjoyed when you could do a weekly local Standard tournament or something, but it's just been so long since we've been able to do those things, and I'd really enjoy it coming back beyond this RC season and beyond it only being relevant when it's an RC format and stuff. But we hope.
So what I'm kind of hoping here is, because I'm so out of touch with the format, that this will be an educational episode for myself and for anyone listening to this. Because what we're going to do today is we're going to have a look at the standard format currently. Now again, for reference, we are only a few days out from the pre-release as of the point of recording this, so nobody knows anything about what the Phyrexia All Will Be One standard format looks like. So we're going to discuss Brothers War standard decks and then see where we think the Phyrexia All Will Be One stuff will slip into that.
And then we can discover how wrong we are.
Well, yeah, that's going to be the interesting thing as well. So because we're doing this kind of off the back of our Phyrexia All Will Be One discussion, there's all these like sweet cards like flying about in my brain. There's all these decks I want to build. But since I know nothing about the format, like that Green Stompy deck that I was talking about that has to exist, maybe you're going to educate me in a format that is just the most like toxic environment for a Green Stompy deck to exist in, and it just is dead before it even hits the ground. So I'm excited. I'm excited to learn about Brothers War Standard and what all these really powerful new Phyrexia cards can do to change that landscape. So, what do you think the best place to start is what are the pillars of the format? Is there 3 decks, 4 decks? Like what's the landscape like at the minute?
You could probably condense it into, I'd say, 4 decks. The way I'd kind of categorize them is you've got your Fable the Mirror Breaker decks, your Wedding Announcement decks, and then your kind of aggro decks are the 3 ways you can go. If you
That's interesting
want to class it as
that Wedding Announcement decks aren't your aggro decks, because that seems like a very aggro slanted card.
Yeah, it does seem aggro slanted, but it kind of plays out more in the mid-range decks. It's, in fact, I don't think there's a single aggro deck playing Wedding Announcement currently.
Now, see, this is the interesting thing, because I joked with someone recently about the state of Standard, because all I did was logged on to MTG Goldfish, looked at the Standard metagame, and literally the top 6 decks were just all different flavours of mid-range. It was like Esper mid-range, Mono White mid-range, Grixis mid-range, Gruul mid-range, Mardu mid-range. You know, like, it was literally the top 5 or 6 decks were just XY mid-range.
Yeah. It definitely was that for a while. It's
Okay, so that's exciting that we have moved away from that, because I played Standard solid from like Return to Ravnica Standard all the way through. In fact, no, I played Innistrad Standard as well. So I played original Innistrad Standard all the way through to like pre-COVID Standard. And the only break I took was the Zendikar Battle for Zendikar Standard.
right.
So I took a break for that whole block, maybe just that set. But basically, the thing I really didn't like about it, in fact, I'll figure it out because it was rotation. It was after like Mantis Rider rotated. Because I remember there was a time where Cans rotated out, but Dragons was still in the format.
Right.
Because what they did at that point is they did a really small Standard, because that's when they moved to like 2 set blocks, and there was only ever 3 blocks in at a time. And the way they lumped it, was they went, you get Cans and Fate Reforged as 1 block, and Dragons and Origins as another block. So it was during Battle for Zendikar Standard I took a break, because what ended up happening was until the fetch lands rotated out when Cans went, because what ended up happening, we had the short rotations, so we had Cans and Fate Reforged were considered 1 block, Magic Origins and Dragons were considered 1 block, Battle for Zendikar Oath of the Gatewatch was 1 block, so you had to wait till Shadows over Innistrad came out. And when Shadows over Innistrad came out, that cycled out those first 2 can sets. But until that point, every deck was just a 4-colour pile, and it was awful. Like, it was just mid-range mirror nonsense. That's where you got the wet Jund decks and the black Abzan decks and black Jeskai decks, because people were just picking any card they liked. And between those Zendikar lands that had basic land types on them and the fetch lands, you could just play perfect 4-colour mana.
I'm not gonna lie. It sounds terrible to most people, but that's kind of the magic that I think that I really wish I was playing in.
It was terrible. It was terrible. People were putting Crackling Doom in the same deck as Siege Rhino. People had like Obnixilis in the same deck as Mantis Rider. Like, it was awful because there was no. It didn't feel like there was archetypes. There was just like cards and like you just pick.
Yeah,
four
just
colours.
I'm gonna fit all these cards into my deck regardless of the mana constraints.
Do you know what I mean? Like decks like that started their curve on like Jace Vryn's Prodigy and then still cast a Siege Rhino and shit. It was just like.
Oh, and you're saying this was bad? This sounds amazing.
It was terrible because because they were just grindy mid-range mirrors. Like, the reason I love a mid-range deck, I will gush about playing a green-black rock deck all day. But the reason I like them is because they're versatile, right? Because you go, I'm playing aggro, so I'm going to like, now I'm the control deck, I'm playing control, now I need to become the aggro deck, and like you have all these versatile sideboard plans, and you have all these modular cards like Abzan Charm. And planeswalkers that have multiple modes, and you've got a lot of decisions to make because you're trying to navigate lots of matchups. But see, when everyone is doing that, the games just feel like an absolute quagmire because everyone has just got so many decision points, and like it's hard to imagine where the game is going because like on a draw that goes Jace into Siege Rhino is very different from a game that goes Jace into Mantis Rider into Crackling Doom. So like,
sure, yeah.
When you're not playing against an archetype, you're just playing against a pile of cards. Like, how do you even plan for that matchup?
Yeah, I can see that. I definitely think, as much as I like these mid-range mirrors and I like a mid-range metagame, half the reason I like it is because I've always been quite good at finding what goes over the top of it. Like, I'm the guy that turns up to a room of Jund players and goes, turn one amulet, go.
Yeah. Like, but again, that's the innovation, right? That's breaking the mold. But when a format just looks like 6 mid-range decks are the best decks to play, I don't know how fun that's going to be. So you've got Fable decks, which I assume are just all mid-range piles.
Yeah, Fable pretty much exclusively.
Then you've got mid-range. Wedding Announcement, which you're telling me are just mid-range piles.
Yep. The Esper decks and stuff, they are actually still playing for Wedding Announcement, but they're mostly kind of Esper Legend decks these days. Like
okay. So like let's go on a tour then. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the Fable decks, or do you want to start with the Wedding Announcement decks?
We'll start with the Wedding Announcement decks.
Okay, so Wedding Announcement decks, you've got Esper midrange. Tell me a bit about why Esper midrange is its own thing and not just another midrange pile.
So what basically it used to be a mid-range pile. So it used to just be you just play all the good cards and you
what are the good cards? What's an Esper at the minute?
The good cards were like Rafine. You were originally playing Invoke Despair, Wedding Announcement, Reckoner Bankbuster, and then just your removal of choice. Your Make Disappears, your Go for the Throats.
I assume you're playing Wandering Emperor because you're white as well, right?
Yeah.
Do we play Shieldred because we're black, Wandering Emperor because we're white, Shieldred because we're black? Like,
yeah.
Okay, so we've got Rafines, we've got Shieldreds, we've got Wandering Emperors, a bunch of removal spells, Wedding Announcements, and Bankbuster.
But then there was a point in the format where someone kind of figured out that a Plaza of Heroes exists. Which is
I am not familiar with this card.
Okay, it's a rare land from Dominaria United that taps to add a colourless, taps to add 1 mana of any colour, spend this mana only to cast a legendary spell, tap, add 1 mana of any colour among legendary permanents you control, or free and exile it to target legendary creature gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn.
That's got a lot of text on it.
It does have a lot of text on it.
So it's basically a 3-coloured land if you're casting your legendary creatures, and then once your legendary creatures are in play,
it becomes
just a 3-colour land.
Yeah. So
okay, cool.
From when they discovered that this card exists, we start to see stuff like Denic Pious Apprentice, which is a 2 free lifelinker for 2 that says cards in graveyards can't be target of spells or abilities.
And he's got Disturb, right, this guy?
Yeah, it Disturb,
Yeah,
and it comes back as a 3/2 flyer. So like this card is now just a great 2-drop, and your mana's now a lot better. And they're curving that into like Wedding Announcement, then Rafine, and then they're kind of topping out it with all their removal in the format. AO the Dawn Sky kind of came into all these decks at one point as well, as just a card that it feels terrible to kill it.
So remind me again, what's the death triggers on AO?
AO is the 5-mana legendary dragon from Kamigawa. It's a 5/4 with flying vigilance, and when it dies you choose one. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put any number of non-land permanent cards with a total mana value 4 or less from among them into the onto the battlefield, and the rest at the bottom of your library in a random order. So you can put 2/2 drops or a free drop and a 1-drop, which aren't your deck, so you can't really do that, but you basically get to put permanents until you make up 4 CMC.
So,
or you can, the second one is put 2 +1/+1 counters on each permanent you control that's a creature or vehicle.
Right, okay, so it just makes your other guys better, which I imagine is good with like your Denic Lifelinker.
Yeah, you mostly just do it to have it replace itself, and you can have it die and you instantly get a Wandering Emperor, for example.
Okay, right, so why would I choose this deck over any deck in the format? What makes this Esper pile a deck for somebody to choose?
You get to play a lot of cards that are just really good in your mid-range winners, and also really good at stopping aggro. Like Denic is just a great card against a mono red deck. Lightning Strike's pretty much, and the ones that are playing a Braid, but mostly Lightning Strike's pretty much all that kills it. And then you're probably going to have a second one. You get to play the Wandering Emperor. You get to play all the best interaction and Destroy Evil, which killing opposing shield
so you get to play Go for the Throat, you get to play Destroy Evil. Okay, so you just get to play all the best cards, right? Because you get to play Shieldred in here too, and then like... Okay. So this is just the good card pile deck.
It's just a good card, and they've figured out that this Plaza Heroes can just be a tri-land with almost no downside. So,
is this the kind of de facto best deck in the format at the minute then?
The last few weeks, it's kind of been doing the best. Grixis was known as the de facto best deck, if you could ever say there was really one, and then Esper Legends kind of came along right at the end of this format and stole it off Grixis.
So before we dive too much into the format, I think a good way to assess these decks, and you're probably already thinking about this going into your RC, right, is what does this deck gain, right? Because normally when you're hitting a new format like we're about to, it's not about what decks win, it's about what decks lose, right? So in rotation, that's a big deal, right? Because so many cards are leaving. But generally, when it's just a set getting added, the decks that fall away are the decks that just don't get new cards because they just can't keep up with the increase in power level of a bigger format. So does this deck gain, in your mind, does this get anything from Phyrexia All Will be won?
I mean, You've got a few legendary spells that you can look at. I mean,
Skrelv.
Against Skrelv, which could be really good as even a sideboard card for your Grixis matchup to stop. Like if you can kill their Shieldred every time it comes down, and you have Skrelv to protect your Shieldred, that seems extremely powerful. I mean, you've got the Venser, the Jace, the Vraska.
Oh, right, okay, that's interesting that you think the...
It's not that they're definitely going to go in the deck, it's just anything, because of Plaza Heroes, anything that says Legendary on it is a consideration within your colours.
Okay, so that's actually what we need to be thinking about when we're looking to augment this deck, is the Legends, because this is about optimising Plaza of Heroes.
Yeah, you really want to make your Plaza Heroes good in this deck. The one that I kind of think really goes into this deck quite well is Mondrak, the Glory Dominus. The 4-mana 4/4 Dominus, the white one, 2 white. It's the one that doubles your token creation.
Mm-hmm. But you
So
only
I
have
think-
wedding announcement in here, right?
What's that?
Only wedding announcement makes tokens, right?
Wandering Emperor also makes sweat tokens.
Ah, okay.
So you can double your Wandering Emperor, double your wedding announcement. It's from that point, do you want to play the as an extra 2-drop the Bitter Blossom?
But I guess that's not legendary, right? So at that point,
It's not legendary, but it's also not much of a mana constraint. It's not a double tap pip. It's 1 and a white. You can usually probably get that down on turn 2. It's another permanent to hit off AO.
okay. So okay, that's your wedding. That's your Esper mid range.
Yep.
What are the other wedding announcement decks? Why would I play anything else?
The other wedding announcements, the main one would be your mono white. And mono white is essentially just wanted to go bigger than Grixis.
Oh, that's interesting. Because normally when you want to go bigger, you add colours. Like when I think back to Temur Midrange, the energy deck, they started adding black to play Vraskas and Scarab Gods to go over the other ones because they're bringing in these powerful off-colour threats that your opponent doesn't have access to. So that's very interesting that this strips it right back to one colour and goes, we're going to be a bigger deck with less
They're
colours.
playing a lot of cards that just guarantee land drops in the early turns. So they were playing Anointed Farmhand, which is a 1/1 for 2 mana, 1 and a white, that says when it enters the battlefield, search your library for basic planes. Reveal it, put it into your hand.
Yeah, and then it's got Coven, you flip it into a 3/4.
And they're playing that into the Restoration of a Jano, which can also ramp you because of its second ability. And just the first few turns in this deck were just make sure you hit your land drops. And then they're just looking to slam like Haymaker into Haymaker, like Wandering Emperor into Elspeth, into Sanctuary Warden, and just all cards that just make your go for the throats and everything just out of Grixis look bad. And
it did that successfully.
It did it pretty successfully, yeah. The last few weeks in standard challenges and stuff of this format, they really were able to go over the top of Grixis.
So I mean, what it sounds like if you're saying Grixis and these Fable decks were the other, and I assume Grixis is a Fable deck, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like it's sounding like these wedding announcement decks just have Grixis and the other Fable decks kind of outclassed because you've got this other 3-colour powerful good stuff pile in the Rafine Legends deck, and then you've this mono white deck that only exists to beat up on Grixis.
Yeah, Grixis was such a powerhouse for so long in this format that they really kind of demanded an answer, and when they came to answer them, they came at them pretty hard and really found ways to go over the top.
So you've mentioned Grixis a couple of times, but you've also mentioned the fact that Fable is a deck and Wedding Announcement is a deck. So why isn't there just a Mardu deck that plays both? If they're both the best threats in the format or the meta-defining cards, why don't we just play Mardu and play Wedding Announcement and Fable?
There have been people doing that. It's weirdly, because you lose your Claws of your Plaza, your mana gets a little bit weirder. So the people who were playing this were kind of playing 4 Blood-type Harvesters.
4 Shieldred, I assume, as well, right? If you're in Mardu, you're just playing, we're black for Shieldred, we're white for Wedding Announcement, we're red for Fable. Really? Why? Why are you black if you're not playing Shieldred?
Just so many Doomblades. See, what they were trying to do is just leave these weird bodies sitting around. So their curve was going Blood-type Harvester into Phyrexian Missionary, which is just a 2 mana 2/3 with lifelink, and when it's kicked, you return creature card from your graveyard to hand.
Oh yes, it's the grave digger with lifelink, right?
Into like Lauren of the Third Path. Their 4-drop was Archangel of Wrath.
What is that? Is that not a limited card? Is that not like the 4 mana 3/4 that shocks something when it comes in?
So I was talking to a few people about this, like, and just why this card is good, because I really couldn't understand it either. And their theory is just that it scales, because like it's a 4-drop, and then if you cast it for 5, you get immediate effect. If you cast it for 6, you get 2 effects. But I'm not really sold on it.
And what's its other? So if you pay red as a kicker, it shocks. What if you pay black for the kicker?
It shocks again. You can shock 2 different things.
Right. Okay.
And then they were playing Sarah Paragon and Sanctuary Warden. But I think the reason they were playing Serra Paragon kind of made sense is they were trying to use Rite of Oblivion.
What's that? Oh wait, is that the sacrifice a creature exile?
It's sacrifice a non-land permanent, so you can sacrifice your blood tokens off Blood Type Harvester and stuff like that.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, with the it's got flashback to white black, and it's a white black sorcery, and they were trying to use their Rite of Oblivions to sack their lone Phyrexia missionaries and their Blood Type Harvester tokens to grind this way, and they've obviously got Fable tokens, Wedding Announcement tokens.
I forgot that Rite of Oblivion was a card. Right, hang on, right. This is reminding me of the old Hidden Stockpile Anointed Procession decks. Surely this is the deck that wins the most off a Dominus existing, the white Dominus?
Yeah, this is where I was going to go with this deck as well.
Yeah, right, because because when I'm thinking back to that old Hidden Stockpile deck, that deck played, it was a split card from Amonkhet. One side of it made soldiers, then the other side was the Aftermath card that sacrificed a creature to destroy something. Yeah, so Rite of Oblivion is kind of like that, right? So, like, you're making all these dumb creatures, and then, like, you're sacking the creatures you don't care about to get rid of the threats that you do care about. And if this is playing Wedding Announcement and Fable, like, and Blood, I never even considered doubling blood tokens off the Dominant.
Yeah. And this is, if you were looking for your deck, Kev, that can go Skrell's Hide into Wedding Announcement into Dominus. And then it just double Rite of Oblivion something the next turn.
At that point, I'm like, do I want to be red? But maybe Fable's just too good to not be red.
Fable's a pretty good card. I was kind of looking into this as a Boros deck.
Oh, okay, yeah, because you don't need to be black, right? Because well, you do. You need to be black for the right.
Yeah, but you can make the splash a bit easier, right? If you take out the Blood Type Harvesters for your Skrells, you're basically base white.
Yeah, just get rid of that shit Angel and put in 4 Dominus, and we're rolling, right?
That's kind of what I was looking at with it.
And we get to put in Skrell's Hive, like. So why is this deck currently bad? Because this deck sounds pretty good without Dominus.
It is.
Why is this deck outclassed by the other Wedding Announcement deck?
I wouldn't say it's so much outclassed. I'd say all these decks that I've mentioned are like you'd say tier 1 or whatever, but they're all solid choices, and I think it more depends on like picking the right week for them in these ones. So I think it can struggle a little bit against because when you're playing like that Angel and stuff, if there's no targets for the Angel, then the Angel kind of looks silly. And then the first time you attack with the Angel, that they then Wandering Emperor it, and
what is blowing my mind right now is that, is white actually the best colour in Magic? Because like normally the white cards are bad.
I could absolutely make an argument for white having the best. Like, you could argue that white has the best deck in every format right now.
Well, okay, I mean, let's stick to standard. Like, it sounds like the only thing even contesting the white dominance, not dominus, the white dominance here, is this Grixis deck. But you're telling me that all these white decks just beat the Grixis deck?
I mean,
it's not playing
They
white.
do, but the Grixis deck's just so good that it can.
Okay, so let's hear about the Grixis deck. We've talked about 3 different Fable decks. One of them is 3 different Wedding Announcement decks. One of them is also a Fable deck. So what does it look like when we don't have Wedding Announcement and just build around Fable and Shieldred and be this red-black splashing blue for whatever pile?
Your Grixis mid-range deck is the classic kind of never run out of cards mid-range deck. You're curving Blood Type Harvester into Corpse Appraiser or Wandering Mind.
Corpse Appraiser? That's another draft card.
Because your mirrors and your mid-range decks, nothing survives these days. So you need every card to just do something right away, and this card is just card advantage. It's why if you look at the top decks,
is it not just a 3-mana 3/3 that draws a card? It anticipates or something, doesn't it?
But it puts the cards in the graveyard, which is slightly relevant.
Okay, so you're playing Blood Type Harvester, Corpse Appraiser, Shieldred, I assume?
Usually about 1 or 2 Shieldreds. And then you're playing like Cut Downs, Spell Pierces, Abrades, Go for the Throats, Make Disappears, some are playing like a singular Brotherhood's End, and then
is this deck playing Invoke
Despair? Four Invoke Despair, yeah.
How can you play 3 colour and black like spells?
Because the mana is obscene right now. So you're usually
so this Grixis deck could cast Phyrexian Obliterate.
100%, yeah. In your 27 lands, you have 5 of your 27 lands don't produce black. The triomes are the New Capenna triomes anyway. They're not called triomes, but these tri-lands are just so incredible for mana. Especially there seems to be, if you look at all these decks, a distinct lack of turn 1 plays in all the mid-range files, except from like 2 cut downs and some of them. They don't really do anything on turn 1. So you just get to play your tri-land tapped, and then your mana's just great for the rest of the game.
So this is what I was thinking, because like when I think back to the last format that I paid a lot of attention to that had tri-lands, it was your Kansas Tarkir, right? So, but you had to make a choice, because aggro was great back then. There was a mono white aggro deck, there was a mono blue aggro deck, and there was a mono red aggro deck. So if you were opting into playing these tapped land 3 colour decks, you had to make sure you had catch up mechanics in. Like for some fun decks that was really easy because you just played Siege Rhino.
Yeah.
And then it was like, cool, I'll gain 3 life and you'll never get round this 4/5. So like, and that was probably why Abzan came to dominate that format, because it was a 3 colour deck, so it could play all these great cards, but also just had incidental hate against the aggro decks.
Yeah.
So like, if like these wedding announcement decks are all like 3 colour decks, and this Fable deck is another 3 colour pile with no turn 1 interaction, like it seems to me like aggro should be the.
But we have a Siege Rhino, right? We have Shieldred.
But you've told me between Go for the Throats and
the removal's just so good.
Destroy Evil and things.
You've got free in this deck alone. You've got 2 cut down, free Abrade, free Go for the Throat. Then like you're topping out. You've got a Brotherhood's End that can just raff a board. You're topping out at 4 Invoke Despair. Like even your 2-drop, your Bloodtithe Harvester is just a free 2 that can just decide to off something.
So can I ask us, which might be a silly question for someone who's played a lot of the format, why is being Grixis better than being just straight red-black? Because when I think of the red-black deck that is terrorising Pioneer right now, like surely most of those cards are in this format. You've got your Bloodtithe Harvester, you've got your Graveyard Trespassers, you've got your Shieldreds, you've got your Liliana of the Veils, you've got your Fable of the Mirror Breakers. Like this sounds like the standard version of the deck is probably pretty close to the Pioneer list right now. So why does the Grixis deck,
the Rakdos deck, is probably
over just straight red black?
Where we'll go next. It's also a deck, but the reason people were going Grixis was just usually the way to beat these decks is to go over them, and the ways to stop people going over them is to start using counter spells. And your ability to have Make Disappears in the main spell pierce, and then your sideboard you've got 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Negates, and with the mana being so good, and then when these red black and mono black mirrors started hitting off each other, cards like Corpse Appraiser started being really valuable, because all these cards just replace themselves and they've got fine bodies themselves. So you just started getting ahead on the war of attrition. So
we've almost kind of covered the evolution of the format in those few sentences, right? Because I assume people went, okay, red black, Bloodtithe Harvester, Shieldred, Graveyard Trespasser, Liliana the Veil, Bish Bash Bosh, all the best cards in the format, and then the innovation is, okay, well, we add blue to beat that matchup, and then all these white decks realise that they've actually got good answers to Grixis, so are probably pretty good into Grixis, but not so much into the more streamlined red-black version.
Yeah, and then you've got mono blue tempo decks and these mono red decks that kind of get to come back a little once people are trying to go too big.
That's interesting. And funnily enough, you mentioned the card that lets you gain control of your opponent's permanents. What was it called? The one from Neon Dynasty?
Oh, the Siphon Insight.
Oh no, I thought it was something.
No, it was they're playing sideboard Siphon Insight just to It's the one that blue black. You look at the
like,
top two.
draw a card
Yeah.
off their deck or something, right? Yeah, okay. So a card that I wanted to bring up when we were talking about Phyrexia All Will 1 cards. You can tell me if you think this card's a bad idea or not, right? But to me, Blue Sun's Twilight seems unbeatable in the mid-range mirrors. You familiar with this card?
I'm looking at it just now. So
it's X blue, gain control of target creature with mana cost X or less. If X is 5 or more, create a token that's a copy of that creature.
okay.
So, like, you can mind control their small creature, or you can pay 7 and mind control any of their creatures and get another one of that creature. Like, surely that's just a mid-range.
It seems great unless you're doing it into Esper Legends, where you get to make a copy
I
of a
guess,
legend.
yeah. So, yeah, just the fact that that deck's full of legends, maybe just. But again, like, it's still a mind control, right? So you still go 5 mana, take your Rafine.
Well, you need to go 6 mana because Rafine has Ward 1 for no reason.
Like, Rafine is one of these cards like Questing Beast. Every time I look at him, he's got more rules text.
Yeah, I feel like everyone that reads Rafine thinks, it's alright. And then you play against it once and you realise it does something else. Then you play against it twice and it does something else. Then you realise that like they've just drawn 7 cards and they're looting them all away. And it's like, what just happened?
Okay, and is there anything that these Fable decks gain? Because we talked a bit about how the white decks maybe become a white Dominus deck. We talked about how Esper gets access to a few more legends that might just be better than Denic. What do you think these red, black, or Grixis decks are going to gain from New Phyrexia?
So, depending on how they manage to use it, the Capricious Hellraiser, the 4 Invoke Despair deck seems pretty nice. Like, you could probably make a Grixis Rakdos deck work with this. This is, if any card is going to make Liliana good, I think it might be this one.
What about Phyrexian Arena as well? Surely that has to see play somewhere.
Definitely in the mid-range mirrors, right?
Well, yeah, you'd have thought so. But I mean, like, seeing these, like, obviously the Mardu version has a bunch of 3-drop enchantments.
Yeah.
Because it's playing Fable and it's playing Wedding Announcement. But in just straight up red-black, like, surely you could just play like 4 Fable, 3 Phyrexian Arena main decks. And that's maybe then your way to go over the top of these other decks, because you're playing good enough mana that you can cast like your Phyrexian Arena and your Brotherhood's Ends. Like, you know what I mean? You're not going to struggle with Invoke Despair.
Yeah.
You've got untapped lands, and you're just going to draw more cards by like leveraging your Phyrexian Arena. I just want to take the point here as well, just to say how much I love the flavor win that Shieldred straight up curves and combos out of Phyrexian Arena. Like, because in the new lore, she is the Lord of the Arena. So like, you go turn 3 Arena, turn 4 Shieldred. Now you're drawing the extra card and gaining life rather than losing life because you've got the Lord of the Arena. Yeah, I just love that they curve and they synergize. It's perfect. Like, again, we talked about how All Is One is such a good set. Like, just shit like that.
You could reasonably have a deck that, let's say, has 2 cut downs, maybe some. I don't know if you could play Duress in it, but let's say 2 cut down, 2 Duress, 4 go for the throat, 3 Shieldred's Edict, maybe like 1 Tenacious Underdog, 3 Phyrexian Arena, 4 Fable, 4 Bankbuster, 4 go for the throats, 2 Brotherhood's End, 4 Invoke Despair, 3 Liliana, 2 Sorens, 3 Shieldred, and then you just get to play 3 of this Hellraiser and you're almost never going to miss.
Yeah, and if you're just using, I like that.
Yeah,
you're basically just playing like a black-red control.
Yeah, exactly. It would just be a Grixis control deck, and you get to just. I think you're going to have good matchups versus the aggro decks. You're going to have good ways to go above the bigger of the mid-range decks, and then you could even play some Cruelty of Gix in there. So that you could reanimate your dragons earlier.
So what I'm thinking now is, right, you've got all these like mid-range mush, right, And normally the way you beat mid-range mush is there'd be like a good control deck, like a hard, like 5-mana Teferi style deck. Why doesn't that exist in standard right now?
So I feel like there just isn't the Planeswalk. There's not a Teferi right now.
There's no Teferi, there's no Aetherling, there's no...
Yeah, the closest thing we came to that was, it's a deck that I've actually played quite a lot of. There was control in kind of air quotes, where you're playing a mishmash of counter spells, like 1 Essence Scatter, 2 Make Disappear, 1 Negate, but you're playing 4 Stern Lesson, the draw 2 discard 1 that makes a Power Stone. You're playing 4 Reckoner Bankbuster, 4 Might Stone and Meek Stone, 4 Fables, 3 Brotherhood's End, and then you're just playing 4 Skitter Beam Battalion and 3 Cityscape Leveler.
Oh, I remember Skitter Beam getting a lot of hype when it was like in spoiler season, then never doing anything. But you're telling me,
this is a deck that I've played like actually a fair amount of. It won a couple standard challenges a bit back, and then a couple people picked up. But I've been playing it, especially on Arena. It's just been my my ladder deck, just to get up the ranks at the start of every season, and it's really good. The Skitter Beam Battalion is such an underrated card.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those cards when I read it, I was like, oh well, that's going to be the format, and it never done it.
Yeah, this deck essentially gets to go, if it's on the play, it gets to go turn 2 Reckoner Bankbuster, into turn 3 Stern Lesson, turn 4 Might Stone and Meek Stone, then you can use that to draw off the Bankbuster, and then just turn 4 land into Cityscape Leveler. The mid-range decks just don't deal with a Cityscape Leveler generally.
Like, yeah, this is what I mean. It just feels like when there's mid-range piles that are dominating the format, it probably... I don't want to say it, but it feels like it's a bad format. Like,
yeah. Mid-range
piles are meant to be the kind of tier 1.5 catch-all. I'm going to have 45 to 55% against the field, but the dominant strategy never seems to be mid-range. Like, in formats that are considered good and healthy.
The last of our Fable decks is there's a Naya Invoke Justice deck that I don't understand how it doesn't win more than it does.
So remind me what Invoke Justice does?
It's 1 and quad white, and it says return target permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield, then distribute 4+1 counters among any number of creatures and or vehicles target player controls.
So this will be using Fable to pitch the Titan of Industry or something?
Yeah, you're either pitching Title of Industry or Portal to Phyrexia.
So I mean, like, if this is Naya, I assume this is also a...
It's fake Naya. It's Naya just for Titan, and you're never really wanting to cast.
So this is just red-white?
Yeah, this is your red-white deck. You're playing 2 Ambitious Farmhands, 4 Scrapwork Mutts, 3 Sanctuary Wardens, a Steel Seraph, 2 Titan of Industry, 4 Abrades, 4 Invoke Justice, 1 Recharge and Repair, 2 Mike Stone, Meek Stone, 4 Portal to Phyrexia, then you're playing like 4 Fables. This one's only playing 2 wedding announcements, but let's say 4 wedding announcements, and then the Elder Dragon War, a lot of them play as well.
So this is pretty close to, like, this is saying, okay, we're going to play Fable, we're going to play Wedding Announcement, and the way we're going to go over the top of these mid-range decks is having essentially a combo.
Yeah, just a combo reanimate plan. And the thing is, in any of these decks I look at, there just doesn't seem to be graveyard hate.
Well, I mean, that's all going to change, right? Because there's a lot of graveyard hate coming in the next set, right?
Yeah, but they have the graveyard hate now. They have Unlicensed Hearse.
They have Hearse, they have the Werewolf.
Yeah, these just aren't seeing that much play. Like, if we look at the Esper Legends sideboard, there's just nothing. There's nothing to stop
I guess I just don't respect the deck.
They must not.
Because when I think about it, there's no... The other mid-range decks aren't playing graveyard stuff. Like, Grixis doesn't care about graveyard, Mardu doesn't. There's no Croxas or things like that, so... Okay, so here's the thing. Combo's meant to be good, or this combo deck you reckon is, like, got legs. all these mid-range pile, like, what's the aggro decks doing wrong? Why isn't aggro just clowning this whole format? What is your aggro deck?
So the best aggro deck by far is the Azorius Soldiers deck.
So it's another white deck.
It's another white deck.
This is nuts, man. Every good deck is white.
This one is very base white.
Sorry, let me guess, right? There's got to be the recruitment officers. Yep. There's got to be Thalias. Yep. There's got to be the Soldier Lord from Dominaria. Yep. Does it play Siege Veteran?
Yep.
Oh, I'm glad it does. I'm glad it plays Siege Veteran. That was a card I looked at.
Your other limited bomb.
I worried Siege Veteran would be too slow for standard. That's nice. Sky Strike Officer, what one's that?
2/3 flyer that whenever you attack, create a 1/1.
Make a soldier, and then you tap 3 soldiers to draw a card?
This card is bananas and constructed.
Right. Is there not another blue-white Soldier Lord from that set as well?
There is, but it's 4 mana and they don't play it. They do, however, play Harbin,
right?
Vanguard Advisor, Aviator. It's a legendary human soldier for a white-blue. Flying. Whenever you attack with 5 or more soldiers, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain flying until end of turn, and it's a free 2.
Alright, okay, so like, if you're attacking with 5... are you playing all soldiers?
Yes, all soldiers.
Every creature in your deck's a soldier. So I assume...
So this is just your overrun effect. Like, on a reasonable body that you can curve out with. And
then what does this deck play? Like a couple of spell pierces and a couple of slip out the backs, and it
just 2 slip out the backs. That's it.
Alright, so it just plays like 36 creatures and 22 lands.
34 creatures, 2 slip out the backs, 24 lands. 3 of those lands are Mishra's Foundry.
Man, it's so sad to me that this deck just isn't the best deck. Like, I just want this deck to get there. Like, because all these other people are like playing tapped lands on turn 1 and like dicking about with like stupid dragons and reanimator plans. Like, why are you not just going soldier, 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 soldier lord, slip out the back to counter a removal spell, kill you on turn 5? Like,
I mean, it's a solid deck. The problem is when it runs into any number of like cut downs, and then
you draw so many cards off of like your Sky Strike Officer.
You do if it doesn't die. And then Shieldred, it's gonna do Shieldred things. You're gonna get. Does
this deck play Wedding Announcement?
It doesn't.
Not. You just told me it doesn't. Why not?
You're a Thalia deck, right?
Okay, sure. You're not going to curve Thalia.
Your sideboard's just like 3 Protector Negotiators, 4 Brutal Cathars, 4 Extraction Specialist, then 3 Lauren of the Third Path, the one the Rex Age that can drop each player a card.
And this is the best aggro deck as another white deck.
For sure, yeah. This is, in my opinion, by far the best aggro deck. I think this deck is extremely reasonable to register.
So is there any good soldiers in the new set? Because again, I think that's the gauze you need to look through.
Yeah,
because
for sure. Yeah.
If this deck isn't the best deck currently, right? Which it sounds like it's not, right? It sounds like the mid-range decks just have the format under wraps, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the question you need to ask is, does this deck gain anything? Because if the answer is no, this deck probably falls off a cliff, because all the other decks are getting Dominuses and Shields.
There's actually more soldiers than I thought.
You get the double strike soldier.
The Toxic 1 double strike. Yeah.
Toxic 1 double strike.
First strike as long as it's your turn.
What's less exciting? Because it doesn't sound like people are blocking you. It sounds like just killing your guys.
Yeah.
That's less exciting, because like your double striker is always going to deal 2 damage as well. But once you start putting lords on that,
yeah, I don't know if it gets that much.
Get a double striker. You get a. Is there not like a Gideon's Lawkeeper in the set? Sinew Dancer.
Sure, yeah. For a 1/1 you'd have to get corrupted online.
You need to corrupt. Yeah, okay. It gets Skrelv. It
does get. Okay, like, that's actually a relevant thing. Getting Skrelv is very relevant.
Yeah, we can stop playing this shitty Yoshin guy and like just play
4 Skrelvs.
That's pretty good. Like, just playing 4 Skrelvs. Wait. What is this a mainly mono white deck?
Yeah, it's splash blue. Also, but one thing about this deck is, have you ever read Fortified Beachhead?
It comes into play untapped if you have a soldier, right? It's the
it's
you reveal a soldier from your hand. It's like Auntie's Hovel and the Merfolk version.
No, it's more than that. It enters when it enters. You may reveal a soldier from your hand. and it enters tapped unless you reveal this order this way or you control a soldier.
Yeah, it's like Anti's Hovel. That was the Lorwyn cycle.
But then 5 and tap it, soldiers you control get +1/+1 until end of turn.
Oh, okay, so it's got more.
It's just Tundra of upside in this deck.
Yeah, I guess if you're playing 34 creatures and they're all soldiers, it's always untapped, right? Oh, ossification as well, right? Surely this deck plays enough basics for that, right?
I don't actually think it does. It plays almost none.
Are you kidding? The mono white deck doesn't play enough basics.
5 planes. I think mono white mid range gets ossification, and that's pretty big. And then your last aggro deck is your mono red deck, which is
you alluded to this mono red deck. So I cannot imagine what mono red has in this format. You mentioned the werewolf on the last episode. You mentioned Rada's Firebrand. I just feel like if you're going to Rada's Firebrand as a 2-drop...
Yeah, I don't rate this deck, but I feel like it's...
So what else is in it? You mentioned Rada's Firebrand.
You've got 4 Monastery Swift Spear, 4 Bloodthirsty Adversary,
yep.
3 of the... It's the mythic
Adversary?
from Midnight Hunt that has... It's a 2/2 with haste for 1 and a red. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2 and a red any number of times. When you pay this cost 1 or more times, put that many +1 counters on it. Then exile up to that many target instants or sorcerers in mana value 3 or less, and you can cast them for free. Yeah, it's a 2 mana 2/2 haste.
You're on a red deck. You're not casting a.
It's a 2 mana 2/2 haste. Then you've got free Feldon, Ronan, another 2/2 haste.
That's an all 2/2 with haste, right? Okay, I'm seeing it. So we've got a 1 mana 1/2 with haste. We've got 7 2 mana 2/2s with haste. We've got the 3 mana werewolf with haste, pseudo haste. He gives himself haste when he comes
Rada's Firebrand, which is it's kind of like a bad Earthshaker Kenra, isn't it? 4
and then what?
4 lightning strikes, 4 play with fire, 2 rending flames, 4 Kumano faces Kakazan.
Rending Flame, is that the 5?
5 damage to target planeswalker. If permanent is a spirit, then it also deals 2 damage to that.
Man, like...
Yeah, I don't rate this deck much, but... I played in... my last time I played Standard, a Standard tournament in paper, I played against this deck 3 times, and at no point did I feel in any danger. I was playing Grixis with 10 pain lands. I had 10 pain lands in my deck, and I had to cast Grixis on free, and the mono red deck didn't give me any danger.
I'm also like thinking, like, what could this deck do to be better? What does it gain? And I'm thinking like, oh, Koth. But the problem is, like, Sheard's Edict is going to exist in this format. So like, you can't have a planeswalker as like your primary win condition because like they just edict it away from you, and like Koth isn't throwing mountains at them anymore. Koth like wants to
plus when you play your 4 mana mono red planeswalker, and if they don't have a creature out and you just go, I'm gonna +2 get a basic mountain out of my deck and put it to hand, like they're pretty happy about that, right?
Yeah, but I think of old Koth, he was like +1 turn on
old Koth would be great in this deck, but we don't got that. We got new Koth.
We get Koth at home. To be honest though, the Vindictive Flamestoker I think sounds sick in these Mardu decks. Like, if you're going like turn 1 Flamestoker and then like you're casting a Rite of Oblivion or I guess you won't be doing Rite on turn 2, but like if you go for the Throatin or like casting a removal spell and then casting either a Fable or a Wedding Announcement, like your guys get 2 oil counters already. Oh my god, wait, does the big guy, the Dominus, does he only double tokens or does he double counters as well?
No, just tokens.
He's going to get there.
Okay, so what about in the Naya Invoke deck? Right? Let's say we go Boros Invoke and you get the Vindictive Flamestoker, turn 2.
Right, okay, can as much as we're talking about decks that gain things and where we could slot things in, this red deck
I'm not
like,
hyped on it just now.
So I imagine like it sounds bad already.
Yeah,
I
I'd
imagine
say
it just
so.
gets worse. Like, it gains literally nothing and it already sounds worse.
Yeah, I'm not very high on this deck.
Right, so hang with me, right? So if aggro is the best thing to be doing, is this mono green's time to shine? Is this it? Could it be? Like, what else? What else could it have? I'll brew this. But like, we've already got the 1, 2, 3. So like, what other good? Because none of the decks you talked about are green. You've talked about like Grixis, Abzan. Not Abzan. You've talked about Grixis. You've talked about Esper. You've talked about Red Black. You've talked about Mardu. Like the only green card you've talked about this entire standard
for green mana
breakdown is the Titan of Industry, right? So like, what's happened to all the green cards in standard?
There was a mono green. I can't remember if it was before rotation, but I definitely played a mono green deck in standard on Arena at some point.
Surely, we can't be in a world where green.
So
the
let's
best
see
colour in Magic
what
is
currently.
Bad, right?
Currently, we have.
Nah, right. Forget about it. What's fine? Let's just figure this out. What? Because like, you've got the Teething Wormlet as well, which was a card that seemed crazy that never got any love. So like,
Uvenwald Oddity as well.
Yeah, the format.
Yeah, and then you've got Briarbridge Tracker.
That's the
and
that's
it's
the one that makes a
4/3
right?
with Vigilance as long as you have a token.
Right, and you've got the green one that you were talking about earlier.
I think that might actually be out. Yeah, it was D&D, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you've got
no, you're right,
Teething Wormlet, you've got Ascendant Pack Leader.
Yeah, oh yeah, like surely, right? If the way to break this format, like get through all these mid-range guff, is with like a good aggro deck, it's got to be the green boys. What about that other one? That one that gives your guys Death Touch if they're tapped or Hexproof if they're untapped?
Which one's
Yeah,
that?
there you go. Now we're digging deep. I remember that card. But see, this is the thing, because I mass open boxes, I see all these cards that
I have
don't
no idea
hit
what
constructed tables.
There's Gaia's Gift.
This is what I mean, and like, surely there's just like the Snakeskin Veil equivalent, so like, you're not worrying about removal if you're playing a green deck, right? Like, because what is it? It's Tamiyo's Safekeeping. Is the
Gaia's Gift does it as well. It's 1 and a green.
Oh, it's fine, we can play 6 of them.
+1 counter
play 6
on
of
them
them.
as well.
Oh my god! And then the bloated thing
Yes,
proliferates that counter up, and mate, I think we've broke it. I think we've just broke the format. And like, is there a Planeswalker that distributes +1/+1 counters as well? There's got to be some green Planeswalker that dishes out counters. There's got to be. So when I think about all the cards that we've spoke about that would be good, right? Like when we talked about Ossification. It doesn't really have a deck.
I think Ossification does go in the mono white mid range deck.
Oh yeah, you're right. Like there's a bunch of black removal spells. Phyrexian Arena, like Capricious Hellkite maybe finds a home. Hopefully Vindictive Flamestoker finds a home. Like these green decks.
The White Dominus, we're
like,
hoping finds a home with Skrell's Hive and Windman's.
Yeah. But do you know what I mean? Like the more I just feel like I'm getting mono green pilled all over again. Like I just, when I'm looking at this format, if nothing changes, surely mono green's just the best deck.
I kind of feel like you're gonna get Doombladed a lot
because this format needs an aggro deck to break it, and like I just feel like this is the one. This is it. Because soldiers are getting worse. Mono red's going to get worse. So like, I don't know. Or do you think there's something that we're missing? Like, from the new cards that like change this format up?
Like, I'm not really sure. I see Toxic being a very good limited mechanic. I don't see it breaking into constructed.
And unless the blue-black decks that we're talking about become a thing. But I think what this format needs to shake it up is you need to challenge the mid-range pile. So you either need a hard control deck or you need
to go under over
bonkers aggro deck. So like Skrelv helps.
What
the
about
aggro
this
deck.
Kaya? How does any the Children's Edict doesn't matter. I was literally looking at Hexproof 7 mana Walker that draws 2. I'm like, how did the mid range decks ever kill? Oh, they just printed that. That doesn't matter.
Right. Okay. So you're about to start prepping for the RC. Where are you starting? Because you've not started your prep yet, because the format doesn't exist yet, right?
My first point of call was going to be put Wedding Announcement and Fable into a deck and try and make something work from there. I'm probably going to test the White Dominus. At least test it as like a free 4 and then see what happens from there.
So, do you think this is the death of the red-black deck?
I think they're going to struggle, but I do think that Shieldred's Edict is a hell of a card. And like you say, if we can You can go Phyrexian Arena, start to cut creatures, bring in some capricious Hellraisers.
If white's the best colour though, if white's the best colour, surely there's just a white-black deck or a Mardu deck that's just going to be better than the red-black decks or the Grixis decks. Like, if white is just the best colour, which it seems to be, like... I'm like... From what we've talked about, your mono-white deck sounds amazing. You're telling me Esper Midrange is the best deck. There's already a Mardu deck in existence. I just don't see how these Wandering Emperor Wedding Announcement decks are going to fall out of favour. So it just feels like decks that aren't playing these white cards are just going to fall further and further
We'll
out
see.
of the mid-range.
Like I say, the only way that I think that red-black has to find a way to go bigger. And I think if you can make Capricious Hellraiser work, then that is a way to go bigger. Like, if you can really start to get some good value from it, you gain card advantage, you gain this, you can maybe start to go bigger, but I do think the decks are going to have to change post All Will Be Won to do that. I don't think they can stay the same and just expect to win off card quality.
Like, I mean, it already sounds like they're starting to lose in the card quality battle anyway.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, I mean, I again, I'm green pilled, but I think this mono green deck, this mono green deck sounds better than the soldier deck.
I will say it certainly sounds like
bigger,
it
faster.
destroys the soldier deck in a 1v1.
This is what I'm saying. Well, yeah. So like, it's going to like, if all the aggro decks need to eat each other, this green deck is just going to. It's got fight spells. It's one drops become 4/4s really quickly. Like, and for the same reason, like, because you're now in mono green, you get to basically play your own, like, you get to play your protection spells. So like, I don't know, man. I think. And like, maybe there's a hard control deck shows up. The hard control deck shows up, then like,
what about going into green white?
Then we could be talking.
And you could play like Skrells.
Well, again, I think we're getting deep here. I think this is like a week of brewing. I think that has to happen. But that's interesting. The format, it sounds really dull. I'm going to be honest with you, but I'm hoping it can get shaken up. Like, the fact that Dominus is going to come in and make token decks a thing, like, that's fun. Like, if we get a white-black tokens deck or a Mardu tokens deck. Because it's just, the problem is, with all these mid-range piles, they don't have any form. Like, because token decks are inherently mid-range decks, but like, they have a thing they're doing. Like, the Esper mid-range deck is at least a Legends deck and it's doing something. But like, your mono-white pile, your Grixis pile, your red-black pile, even your Mardu pile are just...
Back in the day, you used to have Mardu vehicles and stuff and that, and they felt like they had identities.
Right? Yeah.
These just kind of feel like, I'm playing these three colours and the best cards in those colours.
So I would like to think that, you know what I mean, if, like, Soldiers is cool, the fact we have a Legends Matter deck is cool, Tokens could be a cool deck, Dominus definitely seems like it's strong enough to support a deck. I'm kind of hoping that the format gets a bit more shape, and the reason as well, when the format has shape, the thing that interests me more about that is, like, I think less decks in a rotating format is better. Like, if it becomes a 4-deck format, that is so interesting to me, because then it's, what deck do you play week by week? What's your sideboard plan for your 3 big matchups? How are you breaking the mirror? But whereas when there's like just 7 different mid-range piles, it's just you just have to like,
and it
draw
feels
well,
more
play
like
good.
you're just you either picked the right deck list for the weekend or you didn't. And if you didn't, then you're going to have to draw exceedingly well to do anything, really.
That's it. And like, a lot of people complain when Standard is like, oh, it's just 3 decks. I'm like, that's amazing. Now we're in a rock, paper, scissors format and you have to try and figure out how to make your scissors beat rock. That's amazing. That's so cool. And it's cool because it only lasts 3 months. Like, you know, like, you wouldn't want that format for a year, but like, when you've got 3 months to figure out, okay, my scissors already beat paper, what can I do to make them beat rock, and then I've got the best deck. Like,
well, I actually think the last time we had
that
was when you had the mono red decks with Embercleave, you had the Bant decks with just like Nissa who shakes the world, and then you had something else. And I remember playing against you in a tournament where I was ready for every deck and you just brought a cat oven deck and I'm like, I am not ready for this at all.
Well, this is it. Like, my philosophy has always been, and it has cost me massively. I remember coming off Worlds, well, World Cup, not World. Coming off the World Cup, I had a decent number of pro points, and there was a real chance that if I played well, I could have maybe got silver. Like, I mean, I was off by a good bit, but not. I had to get something like 7 pro points, so it wasn't crazy, wasn't out the realms of possibility, and I ended up like 3 or 4 short. And my philosophy for Standard was always, I never wanted to play the best deck, because good players have a plan for the best deck. I always wanted to play the second best deck with a plan for the best deck, and then have a good matchup against the field. And that philosophy maybe cost me. And that was around the time that Mardu Vehicles was a good deck, and like looking back at it, I should have maybe just played Mardu Vehicles and just like got all the free wins that Mardu Vehicles came with. Yeah, but I was so, I don't know. I just didn't want to get on the Mardu Vehicles plan because the mirror looked awful to play, and the same with like Marvel as well. When the Marvel deck was good, I was like, I'm not.
I came in just after the Marvel deck, and I'm kind of happy about that.
Yeah, I have. I like playing. Yeah, the deck that is only going to be like 20% represented, which is. Yeah, maybe a bad habit, but yeah, stuff like that. Like sometimes you get them because they're like, "Oh, I'm ready for everything."
Yeah.
You're like, "Oh, cat oven." You're like, "Yeah, remember this deck? It's still good." Like, so yeah, like I like doing that, but I maybe do it too much, and sometimes I should just play. Esper mid-range.
Yeah, just play the best deck.
Kill everyone with a green stompy deck. But no, it'll be interesting how this develops. I'm gonna get brewing then, and you're gonna get trying hard, and it'll be interesting to compare notes in a week's time because we're going to get to see. I assume there's going to be a bunch of
there'll be some 5-0 deck dumps, and before we talk again, there'll probably also be a set of challenges which will have some results from a more spiky perspective.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting because I'm going to go away and I'm going to look at all the sick cards and try and see what I can do with all the sick cards. I'll have a look at trying to make this like blue-black proliferate deck. And now that I've got the context of the format, it's going to be so much easier, right? So I'm going to brew some blue-black proliferate decks. I'm going to really get down and dirty with this mono-green aggro deck. I'm going to hopefully find a home for my Bay Glisser. And I guess we'll try and see what we can do with Skrelv, but I struggle to imagine
I definitely think that card is going to find many homes in Pioneer, in my opinion, and I hope it finds a home in Standard.
Well, I mean, it sounds like he's an easy slot in the Azorius Soldiers deck. It's going to be interesting, because I'm going to go away and I'm going to make all these sweet new decks, and you're going to come back and you're like, yeah, I've just tweaked mono white mid-range and that was the best deck.
I'm going to come back with like 4 cards different from a list we talked about tonight.
Yep. So I think that'll be interesting to compare notes on. See if I can win you round, and then we can talk about what the 5-0 decks are saying, and see who's closer to the mark. But yeah, I am for the first time in well over a year kind of excited.
I've been getting that recently, but I've been the kind of the guy that's wanted Standard to come back secretly the entire time while everyone's been playing Pioneer. So. I might have forced it a little, but I'm definitely excited now.
It'll be good. It'll be good to do a deep dive into Pioneer at some point. But I think we've just started the podcast. We're just about to embark on a new Standard format. You're about to go to the RC. I think it just seems too perfect to just have a proper Standard dive, figure out what the format's going to look like.
Yeah.
Pioneer will
come back with what we think is going to be good. See who is closer to the mark.
Yeah. The other because I'm thinking of all these sweet cards, and it's something I love doing. And me and one of my friends, we used to do. It was never really a regular podcast. We did something similar where we would brew, and we would just pick a sweet card and brew for a format and try and make the most competitive deck we could. So that's kind of what I'm going to come at it with next week. And if there's any pet cards that you have, like I think it'd be fun to just be like, okay, it's not good, but like how good do we think? I don't know, like the Red Dominus can be. You know, this mono red deck is shit. Let's figure out what Red Dominus looks like. Let's make the most busted tier 1.5 Standard deck we can with a Red Dominus. Because you seem to think the Red Dominus. I think
there's definitely something there. I'll tell you what, I will make at least one not just tweaking a tier 1 deck for you next week. I'll have one at least.
Oh, gleeful demolition! Oh, yeah, like this set is so cool because like looking through Brothers War, wait, you can play your skittering guys and the skittering battle ray.
Yeah,
what's it called? There's so much cool shit going on. That, like, this standard format's going to be great. Like, actually, it's a different discussion, and this has already went on too long. But I cannot wait for all this new Capenna shit to just leave. Like, for 3-colour mana bases to get absolutely sacked, and then we can just play all these sweet Phyrexia Will Be 1 cards in a format that's not horrific to navigate around mid-range piles. Get out of here, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Get out of here,
and we can proliferate our
bases.
planeswalkers while dying to the aggro decks.
So good. And I can't wait to talk about it. But we'll need to figure out this format before we figure out the post-rotation format. But this is good. I've not had this standard hype in so long where I'm actually excited to...
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to diving into this. This is a really sweet format.
This week's going to fly in. When does the arena of the cards come live on Tuesday?
I believe it's
when
the same. I
does
believe
Modo?
it's Tuesday is when they go into... Modo is usually the hardest part is getting a hold of the cards because you obviously can't just craft them like... Yeah, it won't take long to get going.
So I mean, I don't want to break the illusion of when this was recorded, but it's... There's only 90 minutes. We're at 10:30 on Monday. Are we going to get these cards in 90 minutes, or is it like going to be 4 p.m. tomorrow? Because I'll stay up.
I don't think they're going to be working on
UK
time, so I don't think it's going to be midnight.
Fuck. I'm a doomsdayer. I don't have a real job. I can stay up all night and play card games
tomorrow and do have a real job.
Oh, right, okay. It's been a pleasure. I hope the enthusiasm has been infectious because I cannot wait to dive into this. So next week we can look at the brews, we can see where we're at with RC testing, and I mean if there's anything else worth talking about, we can talk about it. It's going to be a mad week because limited. Fucking, we're so hyped standard.
It's going to be hard for us to.
So I mean, I'm going to be doing at least
not to come up at least once.
Yeah, fuck yeah, Phyrexia All Will Be 1. Like I think this is everything Magic needed. Like, fucking, let's go. Oh my god,
have a great weekend. Make sure you decide which Elish Nornart you like best.